and welcome to Deep Dive into Jewellery Design today with our panelists, John Ball, Managing Director of Brown Newirth. We have Pamela Statham, Head Designer of Continental Jewellery UK. And we have Zoe Harding, a freelance senior jewellery designer, both commercial and private experience. So thank you, welcome. I hope everyone is keeping cool in this very warm weather. And before we begin, just a little bit of housekeeping. So any questions, there's a chat down below. I think everybody's already kicking off in the chat, which is great. So welcome everyone. Any questions, please pop them in there and we will find the right break to ask our panelists. And also I understand there's a few internet issues in London. So if we do have a little bit of a blip, please bear with us, we will refresh and log back in. Otherwise, it looks like we're ready to kick off. So I'll kick off with John Ball from Brown Newirth. Hi, John. Could you give us, I guess, an introduction to Brown Newirth and your position up there?
Okay, yeah, sure. Look, Brown Newirth is a 53-year-old Hertfordshire-based wedding and partnership jewellery brand stroke manufacturer. I guess we believe that we're defined by our use of high quality materials, finest craftsmanship, innovative bridal designs, so backed by impeccable service. So that gives you a bit of a brief overview of Brown Newirth.
Yeah.
My role there is one of managing director. It's my duty to lead the business with compassion and honesty, openness, and some emotional intelligence. And we'll see if any of that rings true today.
Yeah, thank you very much, John. So I guess we're going to kick off straight away with the 2D Design Jewellery Challenge. This is the second time we've done, well, actually the first. We had our silversmithing challenge last week and Clive Bullivant was the winner for that. So congratulations, Clive, again, if you're watching. And this challenge was jewellery specific and the theme was Love in Lockdown. Which the title says it all. But John, could you give us some background into what Brown Newirth was seeking in this challenge and the partnership with GC&DC?
Yeah, I guess it's always to ensure that we're challenging the talent within the industry. I think it's always about promoting to make sure that we're promoting the jewellery industry well. And obviously we're going through a period of time, it's unprecedented, uncertain times. So I guess the rationale was to keep people active, keep mind active, and to also embrace the fact that during the course of lockdown, love was a big part of people being together, and one would hope that the majority would kind of find that a stronger bond, and what better way to celebrate that or to at least think about that than a design competition throughout that period. So that was, I guess, the rationale behind the design competition. Yeah,
thank you. And just to give everybody some background on this, the competition was to design love tokens, engagement rings, wedding rings, partner rings, or bridal wear for couples or people who've been impacted by the lockdown and had to postpone some of their events. Following that, we also said that we had a few little design things, so make sure it's made in gold with any color combination, with some stones, etc. And see what comes of that. So we've had a nice variety. I guess, John, what were your overall thoughts on the entries?
We had a real challenge, to be fair. So we kind of spent a fair bit of time narrowing down to the final, the final few that really stood out. I guess we wanted to have a look at where there was an empathetic embrace with the story of lockdown in love. I think there had to be a connection with the theme, of course.
Yeah.
We're looking for creative use of materials and gemstones. We needed to see a good presentation. Of course, you've got to make sure that the design sticks to the brief. So it was a real challenge, but we really enjoyed it. Actually, it was a great day.
Good. That's a good testament to our designers. Okay, great. So how did you narrow down the designs? I mean, that's, as you said, it was a challenge. And what key attributes were you looking for?
Well, I think in what I just said, I think we were looking for those that read the brief well and delivered on the brief. Presentations come in all different formats, from handwritten, drawing, CAD, and I guess it wasn't specific to any one of those that we were looking for. It was just the detail that we would see. Commercial wasn't necessarily the win there, of course. So there was a big cross section of commercial and more contemporary design work. So it's very difficult to actually to suggest exactly what hits the mark. You don't know until you see that piece, and you compare and contrast with others. And I guess 5 that were shortlisted did stand out for those reasons.
Yes. Okay. I guess everybody's waiting for this moment. So without further ado, Alma, cue the shortlist. Thank you. All right, so congratulations to the 5 who were shortlisted. And I think everybody can see on screen clockwise from the top going round. We have Alexandra, Eleanor, Anna, Charlotte, and Guy. And John, I guess we can run through the shortlist and we can have your comments on each piece and what stood out for you.
I'm obviously speaking on behalf of a number of people. So there was another colleague with me from Brown Newirth, and that's our product creation director, Lindsay Mitchell. It was obviously the council as well, but so I'll do my best to represent all of our thoughts there.
Thank you. Okay, Guy Connors. How?
Oh, well, this was just a wonderful design. I think the council made reference to, and rightly so, the difficulty in producing hands within jewellery, and the terminology was that Guy nailed that. So well done, Guy. I think there was a great consideration to the time of year, the camellia. The colour was representative of love and a strong bond in love. So actually a very nice design. Actually, I love coloured gemstones, and for that reason, I think that this was a terrific.
I love the wedding ring in the middle. Very sophisticated and simple.
Very
well
nice.
done, Guy.
There's a reference to the back of the ring as well. I like a couple of national design houses. One is Russian, and a couple of Germans, where they alter the back of the ring and actually taper it out. About the design as well. So well played. Very nice.
Yeah. Thank you, Guy. Congratulations. And next, we will move on to Alexandra and the Labyrinth engagement and wedding ring.
Yeah, we found this to be a super commercial design. I think this is something that perhaps even Pamela would recognise as part of something that her company would look at, and I'm sure have done similar kind of things in the past. I think the navigation of love was something that we wanted to. We thought stood out. So that love in a labyrinth and finding each other, we thought that was a good story and a good presentation. Really nice presentation.
Yes.
Well done, Alexandra.
Yes. Well done, Alexandra. The next, thank you, Eleanor.
Okay, so we loved the adaptability, and of course over the last 10 years or so, composable jewellery has been extremely popular, and we know the big brands that master. So we thought that the fact you can add to this, and it was very summary. I think that we recognised that whilst the market might be limited, it was quite bridally, and it was relevant for the time of year. So we thought it was a very nice entry. So well done, Eleanor.
Yes, well done, Eleanor.
Very good.
And Charlotte Smallman. Charlotte gets a special mention. So John, could you tell us a bit about the sentiment behind this piece?
Yeah, look, this one was specific to a couple, so that not everybody can probably read this, and if they can, then that's great, because what it actually says is that Charlotte's brother-in-law and fiance unfortunately had to cancel their child's christening and also their wedding this year, and the whole lockdown in love was about making sure that we took care of others as well. And I think in this piece, when you actually break it down, not specific to the design, but the sentiment behind it, an awful lot that connects the couple and the sentiment around the two celebrations that unfortunately were cancelled. So if you lock them together, there's a love heart, the wings for sentiment, use of birthstones and so on. So we really, I thought that one stood out. We all thought it stood out for the right sentiment, as I say, and it was specific to somebody. So we really liked it. Well done, Charlotte.
Well done, Charlotte. I think from a technical perspective, I think it's very good that she did then, in fact, give a great description of what her piece meant, because I guess
the story. It was a story. It did match the brief.
yes,
All of the shortlist, of course, matched the brief. But yeah, it told the story very well, and it connected the piece and explained every element. And actually, break it down, there are a number of elements that connect that to those two individuals. So
yes,
I specifically really like that.
yeah. Well done, Charlotte. Well, I guess now the drum roll for the winner. And the grand unveiling, making us wait. Anna Strout, well done. Congratulations. So John, take us through Anna's piece and why Brown and Newirth felt this piece deserved to win. Pieces.
There was an immediate connection to the Japanese story, so the folded or the knotted letter.
Yes.
Booby boomy, if that's how you pronounce it. But I guess the comments from myself, my colleague Lindsay, and the council were that it was beautiful storytelling. It was beautifully presented. Okay, it was careful, thoughtful, and a meaningful design. There was real meaning. Contemporary, but still able to be enjoyed, and actually can be enjoyed in many different ways, whether it be a hairpiece, a brooch, but actually also then it becomes that love token forever. That momentum of sentiment for a lifetime.
Yes.
Which is technically pretty and pushed the brief to create a true love token.
Yeah.
So, a real memory creation.
And then in fact, as you mentioned before, you could actually engrave a little message on the inside, which I thought was a great idea. Almost like a locket, but almost like a letter again. Like we're so used to digital mail, this is quite nice to see something that goes back to a traditional way of sending messages.
I think some real thought has to go into producing, but it's a challenge we're very happy to take on. It was a lovely piece, so well done, Anna. Yeah, congratulations.
Congrats, Anna. So yes, well, that was a whirlwind going through the designs, but I understand it was as you said before, a difficult task because they were all great designs. So thank you everybody for entering. And on that note, John, do you have any tips for designers who actually aspire to work for a design brand like Brown Newirth?
Yeah, I think, look, we're here in the context of the Craft and Design Council, so stick close to the Craft and Design Council. They look after young talent, or talent per se, and promoting young people into our wonderful industry. So stick close to that. Enter competitions, the annual Oscars, as we call them, I guess. The Craft and Design Council annual competition is something that you should partake in if you can.
Yes.
Send portfolios to businesses, talk to them before they're even advertising for designer roles. I guess become visible in the industry and attend those events, and actually before long you will start to connect, and the networks will then start to open up opportunities.
Yeah, that's brilliant advice. Yes.
To be part of it.
Yes. It's difficult to get seen. It is a very crowded market. So as you said, entering competitions and getting your name out there and making connections is super important.
But the company do that better than anybody, don't they? They give the platform to designers, to craftspeople. And there's every opportunity for your pieces to be seen. There's plenty of activity. So that would be my true advice, or my primary advice would be to get involved and to make sure that you challenge yourself through the company. Yes. Look, we have two designers on the panel. They might have a different view or can expand upon that, but.
And I guess what is next for Brown Newirth following lockdown? Lots of companies have had to adapt, and there's lots of uncertainty. So. Yes, how are Brown Newirth doing? Yeah, and it still remains the same. It is very uncertain. Look, we're taking, we're making sure we keep close to other international markets in the same sectors to get a flavour of how that might unfold. It's difficult because it does change by jurisdiction, but look, we're a reasonably sized commercial business. I guess we're one of the bigger manufacturers, not the biggest, but by a way, of course. But we're one of the big few, I guess, in the UK, and we've spent that time looking at
how we can differentiate the other side of lockdown. So there were a couple of things really. We split it into two. One of them was critical success factors, what we needed to do critically for our business in order to keep up. And the others were to concentrate on the new normal. And it's a phrase now we're all becoming very used to hearing.
Yeah.
Briefly, without going into too much detail, and happy to answer questions beyond this, but there were three things in the critical success, and that was a new website. We have to ensure that we're an extension to our retail customers, and we'll do that now through what we believe to be state-of-the-art search functionality. I think that the consumer is becoming ever smarter on how they search for what they want. So we've tried to do that in a format and a platform that makes it very simple, but actually test the boundaries of what's been searched before, I guess, in terms of your normal 4 Cs and by price and so on. So watch this space for a 1st of August launch on that. Sale insurance. So we Brown Newirth, with every branded ring that sells through a retailer, the consumer enjoys what we call a TLC, Brown Newirth TLC, which gives them resizing, refinishing, lifetime guarantee against kind of manufacturer's fault. And to that, from the 1st of August, we're also adding point of sale insurance for 1 year, which is very beneficial for the consumer, but also for the retailer in order to convert there and then. And then the new normal, and I guess that's the things that we'll have to do differently. And we're looking at things like virtual boutiques. We do have a sales team, a field-based sales team, and they're not going to be traveling quite as much. So how can we use that digital platform, but trying to do it so that it isn't just a digital platform where we can dial in as and when. It's all automated and perhaps even consumer facing. In addition to that, something that we call Brown Newirth Concierge. If I just left it at try before you buy for the consumer in order to extend that support to the retailer. And again, that launches for the website. So I can't say too much there because we're still to complete, but 1st of August, we'll see a big launch in both our critical elements that change our business for our retailers and the consumer, but also the work and get there is going to change dramatically as well. So we've been quite busy for
behind the scenes. Because jewellery is a high contact sport in effect, like everything is like touching, feeling, etc. So
we're all reading statistics and we're unsure of what those straw polls really look like, but we know there's going to be a mass reduction in footfall, certainly for the short to medium term. So how can we help the retailer? And I guess that was our question. My question to my board was, how do we help that retailer to engage with the consumer? The one that they already know and the one that they don't know, in order to add value to our retail customer base. For the record, we don't sell direct. So it is about how we extend our services, if you like, our proposition to benefit the retailer in what is going to be a very tough retail high street for some time to come.
And I think I see the sentiment like on a smaller scale for individual jewellery designers. Everybody is taking it virtual and doing a lot of their client meetings via Zoom, which is great that jewellery designers generally have been able to adapt to this new normal, as you say, and are taking or embracing it when it comes to carrying on business with something that you can't feel physically, but this still works. So.
Absolutely, and there's a big challenge, isn't it? Because it is still that. Okay, for some branded jewellery and some branded watches, that works when you don't have to necessarily see it because you know what you want to buy in advance. Two people with us now where their designs, their products have to be seen, they have to be touched and tried on, and how do we extend that virtually almost? That's a big challenge, a big question to ask, and we asked it, and we're trying to fulfil some of our answers. It'll be work in progress, one would assume, over the coming months to keep tweaking to make sure that we stay at the forefront of supply and that service that retailer needs in order to get back to something that looks like the normal that we once knew. Thank
you, John. That's a good insight, actually, and we do look forward to seeing Brown Newirth launching on 1st of August. You said yes. All the best. I guess the last question for John, could you summarise Brown Newirth's relationship with the Goldsmith Craft and Design Council?
Yeah, I thought about this kind of question actually, and look, I'd summarise it by saying it's a partnership. I want to mention one person, and for good reason, but I want to mention Brian Hill in this because a few years ago, he and I started what is now our relationship, our partnership, and that Brian's one of the jewelry industry's true heroes. He is a bit of an institution, and Brian's unwavering support of talent and the industry as a whole, I guess it made us look up and really understand what is our responsibility as one of the bigger producers, the bigger employers in the jewelry. So it's massively important. I guess it's a responsibility for us, from us, that's Brown Newirth and me as an individual, to make sure that we support and work in partnership with the abbreviate them, but the council to deliver both or to enhance the talent that is coming into our business.
Yeah.
To give that talent the visibility and the space and to liberate them to succeed, because we're not all going to be around forever, and we do have to kind of pass this business on to the next generation. So I'd say it's a responsibility and a very, very important relationship for Brown.
Yes. And I guess this 2D design challenge is a testament to that already. Like, it's been great to give our designers an opportunity to show their work at a time, or flex their design muscles, and that couldn't have happened without this partnership. So thank you very much, John and Brown Newirth, for that.
Thank you.
So thank you. I'm going to just have a look at the chat to see if there are any questions for John and Brown Newirth. We have a lot of congratulations, so I second that. Okay, no questions just yet, but there is time at the end. Yes. So I'll move on now. So great. And I am now going to move on to Pamela Statham and Zoe Harding, jewellery designers. And I will introduce Pamela first. So Pamela, thank you for joining us today. And could you give us a introduction and your affiliation with the GC&DC, please?
Well, like you said, my name's Pamela Statham, Senior Jewellery Designer for Continental UK. My affiliation with Goldsmith's Craft and Design Council started when I was at college, when we were encouraged to enter the competitions, again through the tutelage of Brian Hill. Later, I attended an award ceremony under Brian's invitation and decided that then there was an opening for a commercial jewellery design question. And 2019-2020, the first commercial jewellery design question was created under myself and Brian Hill's guide. So that was my my role and an affiliation with GC&DC.
Thank you, Pamela. And can you tell us a bit about the sort of reasoning behind the commercial, why we had a commercial section, or why you thought it important to have a commercial?
Well, whilst I was seeing the most amazing designs and creations during the ceremony about a year and a half ago, it just kept making me think, where do these pieces end up? You know, who are we creating them for? Who actually does buy them? And it just felt that when I was at college, I do remember we had to create, we had to be experimental and different as possible. But one thing I've learned being a commercial designer, unless you can actually sell your piece, you don't have a business. And it just made me think that students coming out of college don't realise that there's actually a world beyond creating magnificent pieces that you can take a whole term to make. You know, you need to actually understand your end goal, and thus I was thinking a commercial jewellery design question would hopefully help students think that way. It was kind of aimed to students, but then a lot of people entered, so the results after the first outing was really good. But it was as a case of just like, think beyond your design, think beyond what you're creating, you know, think about your market, think about how you're making it, think about more than just what's on the paper. That was thinking behind it, really.
Yeah, thinking through almost like a different lens that we haven't thought through before. Yeah,
it's hard actually. When I started designing, it was mainly my boss who used to say, but who are we going to sell this to? I go, but they're amazing designs. Who are they for, Pam? And that's really made me sort of hone in to say, okay, fine, that's true. If you don't sell your product, you don't have a business. So basically, you have to kind of, it kind of narrows it down, but it makes it quite difficult, but it also focuses you, you know. So sometimes someone will say, oh, can you design me something? It's like, well, how long is a piece of string? You keep those parameters, it allows you as designer to focus. Yeah. So
yeah, I guess as designers, I think we're all guilty of designing for ourselves as well, which I get quite caught up in. So
yeah.
And Pamela, what are you currently doing right now and maybe working on, or what's keeping you busy?
DIY mainly, but I have been doing a few commissions, and I have been sort of creating at the back of my mind a new design brief with Goldsmith's Craft and Design Council, which at the moment is under well, hopefully we'll launch that in a few weeks. Can't give away too much at the moment, but yeah, just keep thinking about stuff and thinking about ideas and concepts. Work. But yeah, and some CAD commissions as well. Now, these pieces that you're going through at the moment, this was a range that I was asked to do for a Bieber jewellery relaunch quite a few years back. It was launched through House of Fraser, because they're still doing their clothes now, but they wanted to run a jewellery jewellery range. This is something that I was asked to do, which ran through a lot of high street stores for a while.
Yeah. And I can see already, like, I was going to ask, my second question is actually, how would you describe your practice and work? Because I can see a mixture of hand-drawn and digital. So could you take us through your practice, I guess?
Well, it really does all depend on timings usually. A lot of the times we get given a week to do a lot of stuff. Everyone's, it's a knee-jerk reaction a lot of the time. If I do have time, with say like the Bieber range, I would do a lot of research. I'd try and understand what the client's actually asking for, understand their point of sales, their positionings, their retail prices, and also things that I need to understand, that how we're going to make it as a manufacturers. So if I've got time, then I will do a 2D CAD drawing or a 3D CAD. But a lot of the times most of the stuff I do is on a hand drawn, just sketch, just to give an idea. If they like the idea, I do everything to scale, always to scale. If they like the idea, I'll then take it onto a matrix format, or I might take it, or I'll give it to our manufacturers. And so there's quite a lot, which sometimes there are. I don't have the time to CAD everything. I will send it straight to our manufacturers. They will create the CADs for me, which I'll then approve. Some of these pieces I've either CAD'd or they've just been private commissions. But again, it's just to show different, this is quite commercial, but at the same time, a little bit different. It's just to show all the different, design ideas I have to have under each hat.
Yeah. I guess you have to wear quite a few different hats, especially when you're working different clients and your commercial clients as well as your private. And you can see the variety in your work.
It's always down to what the client's asking for, really. A brief is usually given to me in as a wish list from a client. They would give me their retail prices, indications. They would give me their timelines. And a lot of the times they'd give me some sort of mood board that they are aiming for. Like this one here, this was literally given to me. I've got sent those pictures on the left saying, we really like this idea, but can you just do some variations of it? And I do the sketches. I then from there do slightly neater hand drawings, which I'll then send to the customers and see if they like it. Anything from there, I'll then either CAD up, or I'll then send straight to our manufacturers again to CAD up for me. Over in our manufacturing in Hong Kong, we have a CAD department of about 20, so they can turn around the CADs a lot quicker than I can. So
it's almost faster doing hand.
Yes, but they have a dedicated CAD team. They literally have 2 CAD drawers to 1 designer. So it's actually quite a luxury. Over here, I have to try and do all of it.
Woman team.
Yeah, this one here is, well, it's got the label on there, but the reason this is a very, very old ring, still run by this company. The only reason I put it is because it's so simple, but it's something that it works really well for them, and they run it in platinum, in 18. The reason I've showed it is because it's one particular style that works across different settings, which is something you kind of need to get a grasp of as well when you're designing. It's like, does it work just for that one style? Can that style marry up across the board for different carat weights? Because you have to sort of be able to do that. You have to be able to sell from 15 points to a carat piece, you know, but it still has to work as an individual piece.
Yeah.
And does it have longevity? Does it have saleability? And it's an easy piece to manufacture, but it looks, you know, it looks striking and still looks modern, even though I designed it about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I guess, so actually on that point, it's like you're almost thinking in a different dimension when it comes to these types of pieces. It's when it comes to a design brief as well, so bring it back to a design brief, how would you approach it, thinking about client and your wish list or shopping list, like you said? If we think about the brief in the same respect, how would you approach this brief?
Generally, I have a lot of source materials, whether it's, I go to a lot of trade shows, I look around the shops, I look in magazines, social media, you know, and then I just constantly, I have a few sketchbooks, actually quite a lot of little, you know, the moleskin ones, just full of ideas I'm constantly jotting down. And then when I do get the wish list, I'll pull them together and try and work out what fits their wish list, or I'll manipulate it something. If they feel something's quite strong, then I'll manipulate it to fit that particular brief, or I'll sort of, you know, try and make it more on trend for the time being, you know. And but I do keep a lot of source material around me all the time, and it's usually through sketch little pads that I carry around. And generally, so I'll start from there. I'll then concentrate the designing, trying to manipulate it into their brief, present the drawings, and take it from there, really. This was a range that was based on the royal jewels, really. Hence the ruby from the crown. Again, this was a lot of mood boarding, a lot of breaking down all the elements that are in the royal jewels, putting them in together to make something that was firstly manufacturable, secondly pretty, and hopefully hitting the price points that the customer is after.
And then for designers who are watching today, what would be your key takeaways when it comes to presenting the design brief itself?
I have a few. Well, I think mainly always present your design to scale. As neat and as clear as possible. Understand your customer and research, you know. Even a competition, Goldsmith's Craft and Design Council competition brief is a customer requirement. They're asking you to design something. You look at that brief, you digest it, you understand what you want, and then you make sure you have a tick list that you're covering all of those. So know your customer and their markets, and if possible, give more than one profile so they understand the design story. And always offer options as well, if you can. I know you can't necessarily, you can, I suppose, if you have more than one design that you want to enter for a Goldsmith's Craft and Design Council. Enter more than one, if you know. But having options just indicates that you understand the brief. You know, you can see it from different angles. It just allows you just to, I suppose, just to flex your design muscle as well. And it helps focus the client actually as well when you offer them. Sometimes they know what they don't want when they've seen it. It's something they do want. It was weird. It's one thing always helps to sell another. So
Thank you. It's like, as you said, the options marry up quite well with that ring. We had a few slides back where you said you had to think about it with a different type of stone.
Exactly.
Stone, yeah.
Yeah. This is something I was asked to do a silver range. Again, very rarely get the time and the luxury to create mood boards. But this was just something that I had some time. It was just a silver range, and so yeah, again from sketches, but these were hand carved in wax and then cast from there. So yeah, and another format is just, it's really a lot of the times how I approach a brief, it depends on what the brief is and how long I have to present the brief. And most of the stuff I've shown you, I've been given like minus a week.
Yeah. Yeah, again, that's really dependent upon the clients. This is something very different as well, very hand-drawn.
Yes, and this was for a customer who sells very unique pieces, and there were some slides back previous which I did some bullet designs for them as well, which sold really well, and they asked for a range based on just tattoo and punk, and so this is just a few ideas that I showed them. These weren't necessarily finished jewelry, but it was just a case of like, this is how I'm seeing it, what do you think? So sometimes it's actually quite good if you have a good relationship with your clients. It's good to show them work in progress. It's good to show that you're actually thinking, you know, your thought process behind it. It helps again them understand where you're coming from, you know. Because as well as being a designer, you kind of need to be a salesperson as well. You need to be able to help push your ideas on them and make them understand as well that there is a reasoning for this. It's not just a case of put a picture. I can see this sitting here for you. This will work here for you, you know. Yeah. So sometimes a work in progress like this is just, it's good if you've got the relationship with the client.
I think we have one more shot, or are we on to...
I think that was the last one.
Yes, that's right. Well, thank you very much, Pamela. And I introduce Zoe Harding. Thank you very much for joining us, Zoe. And I guess, again, let's start off with a brief introduction and your relationship with the GC&DC.
Hi, I'm Zoe Harding. I'm a jewellery designer working primarily freelance, although I have worked in-house as well. Started when I graduated in 2003, metalwork and jewellery, and I've worked with the industry ever since. And I've been, less so in recent times, but I used to enter the competition fairly regularly and had some success over the years there. Was fortunate enough to be made a freeman of the company in 2016, and for the past 3 years I've contributed to the judging panel for one of the sections there too.
Yes.
So, the GC&DC have been very supportive of me through my career.
I can see the common thread with Pamela and Zoe and entering the competition and taking part. And Zoe, what are you working on, or what have you been working on recently?
Freelance. There's just not the work out there. I can't pretend to everyone that that there is, because the reality is that companies are having to look after their in-house staff first, and that's just, you know, freelancers are there for when internally the company is so busy that they need external support. So it's been far quieter than I would have liked. I'm really looking forward to getting stuck in when the market is there. But it's been a time for me to kind of do some clearing out in a way and tackle those jobs that I have neglected, perhaps, you know, tidy up my portfolio, sort out accounts, stuff that you just put on
boring things.
Boring things, but you know, we've all been in the same boat, so that's my focus for now. I'm looking forward to it picking up again.
Aren't we all? So moving on to your work, maybe we could cue the designs coming through now. Yes. So Zoe, so how would you describe your work? Because like looking at this, I know you say, as we converse, you do a mixture of hand-drawn and digital. So maybe you could run through your practice.
Okay, so as a freelancer, like Pamela, I will use whatever method is necessary for the customer and given the timing that you have. This particular page is relating to a private commission that I had a year or so ago. So that's something I really do on the side. My main practice is working for the industry, supplying collections, designs. So I work with collections for established brands across the world. So this particular piece is for a sizable emerald, healthy budget from the customer. And in this situation, the first starting point is find that stone. There's no point designing a dream design and then try and hunt down an emerald of that size or shape and then find that there's no way it can fit. So my first port of call here is always find the stone, give the customer options, we choose that, then I design for them, goodness, how many designs that could fit within this approximate budget. And then from that point, I gauge their reaction. So sometimes we scale up, we scale down. They say, actually, I like that so much, I'm prepared to up the budget. It all shifts around. And so it's like nailing jelly to a wall for a while because it's so hard to cost. But when you get to a more sizable commission, you have a more flexibility than you do in the more commercial area. But I have two hats on because that's one hat, or a small hat, and then like I said, the main job that I do, my previous daily work was a commission work, designing collections for brands. So that's when really the finances side of things and the carat weights and things like that becomes critical.
It's like a different shopping list altogether.
Totally. This is just, I'm really limited in what I can share with you because of the very heavy contracts that come along with some of these major brands. I just dare not share them. It's just not worth risking. So I share with you what I believe I can. This just is a little snapshot of some work done for a costume jewellery brand. So very different in style, very figurative, very whimsical, lots of storytelling behind it. These are illustrated on the left, drawn up with Adobe Illustrator. On the right, you just see some finished product shots from the company. But this is really the initial, unlike Pamela, where Pamela was offering hand-drawn sketches, this is my first sketch. So I tend to, I'll explain later, but I tend to go, in terms of what I present to the company, I go straight in with a digital drawing in a normal situation. And this includes crystal sizes, because it's costume jewelry in this case, and a brief rundown of the products needed to create that each piece. And of course then you get your feedback, and then you tweak, you rearrange, and you start pulling out the individual products with them, or maybe the client does it privately by themselves, until you can start to get a cohesive collection together. And maybe you might need to modify one piece to now sit with a suite a little bit better. So working in Illustrator, you can do that efficiently.
I guess it's much more easier to tweak when you have digital tools than to redraw something.
If I'm going to change that pendant and they wanted it to be more dramatic, I can swap out that drop at the bottom and scale it, or import a new piece that I might have in a library that I've created a library of parts. So in this case, it's not for Swarovski, but it includes Swarovski crystals. And so from my work over the years with Swarovski, or companies who've used Swarovski since we've been working with Swarovski themselves and other clients, I have a pretty decent library now of parts that I have built up over the years. And that's not to say that I could just copy paste, chop in, bam, you've got a nice new design, but it's a bit more efficient than hand drawing a German drawing in every facet, and I could drop it in, and I can swap out the colours quickly and test things. I can saturate it quickly and see what it looks like in a silver metal or white gold. It's very, very practical, and it's very useful for my customer, not the end customer, but my business customer, to visualise quickly what the options are for them. This is something that I did quite a long time ago. As you can see, the date on that magazine is 2012, so this is a historical piece. But this is really just here just to show why flexing your design muscle is important. I created this ring for the Lonmin Design Innovation Award, which I don't believe exists anymore. I was one of the winners in that, which is fantastic. It meant that I had to make it and fund that. Yeah. All of that, but totally worth it, because actually it is a distinctive piece, and you know, sometimes it's useful to have something that isn't incredibly practical but is visually arresting somehow. And I think you'll never know really how useful a piece was, but I think it's been useful, and it was an image on my card for a long time, and stuff like that. So it was an experiment in, you know, what can I do that is in platinum and it exploits the inherent properties of platinum that you couldn't necessarily do in other metals, and it was a huge learning curve for me as I, you know, learn more about casting and got such a crazy shape. And so unless you put yourself in difficult situations, you don't necessarily learn. So that's what the competition is, and other competitions are for. Yeah,
to stretch you in many, many ways. So this ring does look like it could stretch anyone. So congratulations on getting it made.
Thank you.
And this.
And this is certainly not my everyday by any means. It's unusual for me that I would be required to do a hand drawing or a paint up, but I think it's really important to practice it. I think Pamela spends more time, say, drawing beautifully and neatly than I maybe do, but when I do it, it's needed possibly from a different point of view. Quite often I do it as a retrospective thing, as a selling tool. You often see on Instagram and other and company websites how much that they use these lovely artistic images of a painting, a paintbrush, and some palette, you know, some materials to make it. It's giving the customer this really romantic vision of how glamorous it is to be a jewellery designer. Not necessarily the actual reality, but you know, sometimes I have done drawings that have ended up being used on TV for TV selling in that particular instance. You know, and it's whatever it's for, whether it's for a website or social media channels, whatever. It's a good string to your bow to be able to present in different ways. And it's actually really lovely when you like the piece, and it's quite relaxing when you finally get into it, as long as you don't spill your water pot or something.
We've all been there. No, this is beautiful. It's really nice to see something very traditional as well, with all the different specifications, which I guess something that you're taught in design school.
Not really, actually. I think personally, not really. You know, maybe it's different now, but Pamela mentioned actually it struck a chord about how when you're at university, certainly when I was, it was all about going as mad and daring as you can. And with unfortunately, very little grounding in reality. That's something you learn on the job when you think, well, I need to earn money, so I need to go somewhat commercial. But I think for me, my work has always been dependent on the customer. So when there's the appetite for something more extravagant, do it, and when it's there's a really commercial client, then bring it in.
I guess that leads me on quite neatly to what would be your key takeaways for designers when it comes to approaching a design brief and presenting it.
Okay. Read the brief over and over and over and over. Read it at the beginning, read it an hour in to research, read it at the end of the day, read it the next day, however long. Read it just before you send the project. Keep reading it and keep looking at any images that you have been supplied. Look at them and think about it, and ask them what do those images mean? Are they images? Do you basically want that? In which case, by the way, I can't give you that because that's copying. But what is it about that you like? You want to kind of get down to the essence of a product and what they're looking for, or a range or a feeling. You've got to also try and read between the lines as to the customer they're seeking to, tackle. I always look at their existing customer base and how they're approaching them. I look at their social media channels and their. I look at the way that their customers engage with them. You know, which pieces are getting loads of likes, which ones are being ignored. You're just doing more and more research, trying to suss out you just want to know as much information as possible. Then I just get straight on with sketching, and that is pencil and paper for me. But they're not tidy, and they're for my eyes only. They are really like shorthand. They're so ugly. If I need to, well, they're just an aid memoir for me. So if I need to, yeah, of course I draw them up. But once I've got these several pages of really ropey sketches, I can then start to see if there are any kind of common threads or themes or collections that might come out of those. Then I can start to prioritize my time based on how much time I've got left. Try and thrash it out quite quickly. Obviously, there's some research that goes in as well, just in terms of any images you might have on file, just basic things that you find useful as design prompts. I have a folder of kind of design prompts that shoot my mind off in different directions is when I'm really stuck. You can't get it from staring at a whiteboard. You need something to work from. And then I find those collections in a sketchy way and start to just build them up. And then sometimes you can work half a day on something and think, what am I doing? That's totally wrong, because you've read the brief again, that's really not working. But I tend to save those for the customer. I still show them the duff ideas, because sometimes if you spent the time doing it and they're paying for the time, they might as well see the duff ideas. So you always put them in, and they might see some merit in it which I haven't seen. So I don't necessarily disregard them, but I put them at the back. And I try and make sure that I present the ideas that I think are hitting the brief, are valid, would fit the story of the brand that they are now and the evolution of where they want to go. So it's not too much of a shock to the system. I'll pad out, if not pad's the wrong word, if the product requires it, if it needs any explanation, I will use some supporting images, a bit like Anna did with Anna for her winning piece, you know, some imagery there which helped explain the sort of heritage and history behind the concept. And I would just keep minimal words in there as possible. If I can explain it with pictures, do it, and keep it clean and precise and empty as much as possible. But I could go on this so much.
I was going to say, the difference is usually when you are sitting with a client, you have that flexibility to chat through your images and the things. But I guess when you have like a competition brief, the person's not there. So
you've got an A3. If you've got an A3 page and you've got to get everything across on one page, you've got to find the most elegant way of projecting your ideas. I always think of it in the way that you might see a company advertise a product. The really nice brands choose one hero piece, displayed really beautifully. They don't, it's not a menu of we can do X, Y, Z. You know, it's not everything. Just kind of clean, present it the way you feel that your brand would like to sell it, in a way.
A nice focus. Thank you very much, Zoe. It's like a whistle stop tour with everybody. There's so much to talk about. Thank you, Zoe. I think I'm just going to have a look at the questions. Wow, we have a few. So, right, first question. What advice would you give to recent graduates who are setting foot in the industry? And which do you think is the best, creating their own brand straight away, or freelancing, or working at a firm? And I guess I'll give you a break for a second. I'll go to Pamela first, and then we'll ask Zoe too.
I think that all depends on the circumstances. If you can afford to create your own brand, then go for it. But it's like as I was saying, you still need to pay your bills. You still need to, support yourself somehow. So if you've got that sort of cushion, then I'd do your brand. There's nothing better than creating your own ideas on paper and trying and sell your ideas. But freelance, like Zoe, is also a brilliant way if you can't, because jobs in the industry like mine there's not that many of them about. So it's a case of just, like John was saying earlier, send your portfolios out, research all the companies in the UK that offer this sort of job. Just send them stuff, even if they're not looking. Just be proactive as possible. But if you can afford to do your own brand, then go ahead. Please do.
And sorry, John, as well.
Can I just add to that, though, that there is a cost to that. So I think you've got to go in with your eyes very wide open. If you want to create a brand, you know, we know some of the Lovies, the Sean Leans and the Stephen Websters, to create those kind of brands, if that's where the direction you want to take, it costs something to do it. You've got to hold stock, you've got to buy a POS, you've got to have somewhere to make it. You've more than just making a piece and sell it individually. Look, if you I think my answer was back to Pamela and Zoe there, where they're the best to advise. And then it's a multitude of answers, isn't it, on aspirations and creative capabilities and commercial nous. But please understand that something that I've always kind of, I love contemporary design. I love design that isn't traditional. I work in a very commercial, very traditional business.
Yeah.
But just keep your eyes very wide open as to the cost of creating your own brand.
And Zoe, did you have anything to add to that as well?
I think I'd echo what John and Pamela say, both completely right in my opinion. I don't think there's any particularly, it's not a good time to be graduating, let's be honest, you know, just with COVID. So I couldn't possibly say this is the best way forward. For me, I started out, my first job out of uni was working in a fine jewellery store, just selling jewellery. And I was running my business on the side, creating commissions and collections to sell in galleries. So that was my beginning for some years before I worked in-house. I learned so much by doing that, by both having my brand, by learning the skills of having a bench, running a workshop, all the costs of the tools and consumables, everything. You know, you get a really good foundation by being a maker first. And that will aid any design work you do for the rest of your career, because you've got a sense of tolerances and things. So I don't think I think if you can avoid skipping the making stage, don't necessarily, because it's really important, even if you just do it on the side for your own pleasure. And I wouldn't even knock working in a jewellery shop, because until you've sold to customers and really got that feedback, especially for products that are not your own baby, that you're going to take any offence to when they're like, oh no, you learn so much about what sells and what's commercial, and it's fun selling as well. And so I don't know, I think it gives you a thirst for the real life, the real world of jewellery design and retail. So I wouldn't discount those and necessarily launch straight in with, I've got to build this huge brand and I've got to work for a big brand. You know, there are other routes in that are very valid as a way of learning before you get there, or alongside doing that.
Yeah, that's a really good takeaway. Be a sponge when you leave, just keep learning.
You don't get that from uni.
No. And then actually that moves on neatly to the next question. Do you have practical jewellery making experience? And that's from Elizabeth Barton, which I guess, Zoe, you've answered. You have the benchwork skills. Pamela, how about
you? I do. When I left college, I left earlier than anticipated, but I went straight into sitting at the bench, designing my own stuff, selling through trade shows. So I gained the extra experience that I needed after leaving college just by sitting at the bench and thinking, oh, I wonder how this will work, and whether I was using straight to metal or wax. But I think to be the best jewellery designer you can possibly be, I do feel that if you have a good grounding in manufacture, it will help. Our lecturer at college used to say, if you can't make it, then don't design it, which kind of, you know, it stops you from creating too much, but also it makes you think about the designing process or the making process whilst you're designing. So yeah, I think to have a good understanding in manufacture is actually really important as a designer, or as much as you can.
That's very helpful advice. Thank you very much. And then one more question. Oh, two more questions. Do you recommend any books or tools for technical rendering or designs, or any YouTube tutorials? There's probably so many. Or maybe is there one, I suppose, let's say, is there one resource that off the top of your head you would say is gold for you?
For designing, or for?
It says the technical rendering of designs.
Oh wow! the renders I use are created from the Matrix program when I do 3D CAD. Any other rendering I may do, I do not use the same program as Zoe, but after seeing her drawings, I think I might try that. But it's, yeah, but I just render with pencil on a hand drawn. Otherwise, if anything more than that, I would literally just use a CAD program, Matrix program.
And that's all just practice, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
getting your muscle going with understanding how to render.
Yeah.
And how about you, Zoe? Anything that you recommend?
I can't remember. There is definitely a book that I used for paint ups, and I cannot remember the name of it. I'm sorry. In terms of rendering on the computer, it's just been a case of YouTube videos. You know, you want to learn a technique, or how do you do that? Watch a video, have a go.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one single resource, but there's just so much out there now. It's so much easier to find this information.
Yeah, it's true.
Rather than one resource. But yeah, I don't remember the name of the book, I'm afraid.
Yeah. And then another question here. If you come from a retail background, it's very commercial. How do you keep it fresh and exciting? Which is an interesting question, actually, if you're doing a lot of commercial work. So I guess Pamela first.
That would be, again, just looking through social media, looking at everything that's relevant today, watching, I do a lot of people watching, seeing what they're wearing, having a look at trends, having a look at fashion magazines. It's the only way. You do have to keep adjusting and kind of put your own personality. I do my personal, I do like contemporary jewellery. It's my favourite sort of, anything that's sort of stripped back. But with the commercial world that I'm in, I try and apply a slight contemporary look to everything that's commercial. So maybe adding your own personality into your designs, you know, the sort of stuff that you do like, is a way to help.
Yeah, add your interest. And Zoe?
Yeah, the same really. I think looking at social media channels is really important, and just, yeah, like Pamela said, people watching, look at what they're wearing, look at what they're buying, keep up to date with trends as much as you can. Actually, just not just fashion trends, but consumer trends in general. It kind of feeds into it, and the way people are buying and what they want to say. I mean, yeah, look at, I mean, we've had this huge trend for sort of stackable pieces and very fine, delicate pieces. But somebody mentioned to me recently, well, there's no point me wearing that because my friends can't, or my colleagues can't see it over Zoom. So, you know, we're in a new world. Who knows what's going to be the way forward now for jewellery. But yeah, it's just keeping in touch with the world at large, really. And yeah, find a way to make everything you do just a little bit interesting, a little bit interesting.
We have 2 more questions, but I'm just conscious that we've actually hit the hour. So the Q&A box, I don't know if Pamela, Zoe, if you could see the Q&A box or not, or if Alma, if you can paste them into the chat, then maybe they can give a go at answering or typing a reply. In the meanwhile, I'm just going to run through quickly the GC&DC guidelines for approaching a design brief. Give me 1 second. I think Alma is just sharing the screen. Great. So this is going to be a whistle-stop tour even again. So this echoes almost everything that our panelists have said today. So approaching a design brief, please make sure you read the brief 20 times, 4 times a day, and even before you submit it. It's very important that you know who the client is, that you understand the theme and the sentiment of the theme. And material requirements are very important as well. So think about the metal requirements that have been noted in the brief, any cost considerations in the brief, and whether the brief has mentioned that you use stones or not, because it would be a shame if your piece isn't considered because you left out stones or you didn't consider a certain type of metal. And finally, use any resources provided. That means if the brief is for Brown Newirth, research Brown Newirth, look at the social media channels. If they provide links or articles or references, go to town, read up on it, and then apply it to your pieces. And then some, I would say, some skeleton things that you should require, that you should keep an eye on is submission requirements. All judging is anonymous. So any, social media tags or branding, including your logo, should not be on your piece. So please keep that, please remove them if they are automated, because we do try to redact them if not. Ensure you have a description of your design. I think John echoed this greatly, like the sentiment was great to see in the pieces, especially in the bullet points that you included on your designs. So please make sure there is a description, so that you're not there, the piece can sell itself. Scale drawings, very important. So do your pieces to scale if the brief asks, including dimensions and stone sizes. And then very boring things, so format, if it says 1 page, please stick to 1 page. It's good for fairness. File size and type makes it easier for us to share it and judge it. And of course, time frame. We had a lot of entries coming in at 1 minute past midnight, which is great. I love the enthusiasm. So keep an eye on the time frame. And I think that's a wrap from us. So I'd like to thank our panelists again. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Pamela. And thank you, John, for joining us today. I will hang around here for maybe a minute or two in case anyone's got any other questions. But I think everybody's ready for dinner. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.